Okay, summing up 2022 and going into 2023. All right. Now we're still not seeing the signs. We're still wishing and hoping that ignorance will save us. But I tell you, ignorance cannot save you during the age of enlightenment. As we're traveling through the age of Aquarius, those things that were hidden, you're going to know that others will also see through that veil. The veil of what's not seen. A lot of people are saying, what is the veil? What is the veil? The veil is the unseen. Right? And so many times, men have refused to take responsibilities for their actions. Their actions are those where they participated in wanton sex. Yes. Those where they cheated people in business. Those where they conned and deceived people and sold them the Brooklyn Bridge, and they knew it didn't belong to them. Right? Y'all know what I mean. So, yes, we get plummeted with crises after crises, right? And the distorted masculine is continuously saying, these are just distractions. I'll create protection. I'll banish God. And it's God that's coming to him, but he's like, no, God's a demon. God's a demon. God is loving. God is kind. God is this, that, and the third. Right? And he's still blaming woman. Right? For his demise. Right? If he's not blaming a mate, then he's blaming his mother. Right? Well, I'm going to tell you. As children, you cannot put yourself into an adult's relationship and see that proper perspective. It's even hard for adults putting themselves into other people's relationship because that relationship is unique to that couple. Yes. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We don't know what happened that would set people off. A lot of people want to say, oh, well, it's my mother this and my mother that. Well, there was a time women couldn't even file for divorce. Believe it or not. No, they could not. Men would sign women's name in a sort of a power of attorney. Women could not do that. They have still maintained on books where it was in law that man could beat his wife as long as the stick was no bigger than his thumb. And God forbid him to have fat fingers. Right? Whew. Poor woman probably got a beating of her life. Right? It was only during my lifetime when the courts had established that women could refuse to have sex with their husbands, right? And men did not like that, right? But the women would appeal to the court saying, well, this man has been involving himself in sex outside of their relationship, and she caught diseases. And the only thing she could do was to refuse to have sex with him. She couldn't divorce him, right? She couldn't run away with kids, right? And, you know, women weren't really in the workplace. And they already took away the nun convents, right? The nun convents are exclusive. So, the only thing she could do was stay there and protest to the man who was not listening and was not empathetic to her body and her needs, that she would not have sex. So when the courts granted the woman to be able to press rape charges against her husbands, the men were in outrage that would happen, right? Because they felt like they could do whatever they wanted to their wife, anything and everything. And they did that, right? I mean, women went from being, you know, undermined in their own family to being abused in having a family with her husband. It was horrible. And you're like, well, why is this allowed to happen? Well, this happened as a result of the Romans that wanted to put money, power, and influence above everything, right? When they decided that, well, we don't have to listen to God. No, we don't have to have a relationship with God. They considered themselves to be God, a God of sorts, because why? They have sperm, and the sperm is required to have babies, right? So, let's talk about what happened. Well, what happened was they destroyed the goddess temples. The only reason why they destroyed the goddess temples is because that's where women went to worship. Women did not worship in the same place that men went to worship, because men's problems were different from women's problems, right? And men did not want to listen or be concerned about what was going on with women and their problems unless he just had to, right? But since he felt himself a god, he figured he didn't have to, right? So women still had their goddess, right? The one that understood what it was to be a woman. So I hear men say constantly, oh, well, we have this direct relationship with God. You know, women can try to be in relationship with God, but they will never understand God. And it's like, well, we do understand God, and we're obedient to God. However, we also know that we're women, right? So when I listen to a man that says, oh, well, you're disobedient to God, and you're like, well, how are you disobedient to God from a man's perspective when men's problems are different from women's problems? Just like they said, oh, women cannot have the same kind of relationship as a male does with God, right? And then I have to go back and ask myself, if they know that, then why did they destroy the goddess temples? Why? That's a good question. They never answered it except to say there's one God, right? And even though women would say, well, we're not calling the goddess a god, we're calling her a goddess. Right? And that wasn't good enough. That was not good enough. So they destroyed the temples. Right? And it was from that point on where men who do not know what it is to be a woman will tell the woman what she's supposed to think, how she's supposed to act, what she's supposed to do, what she's supposed to accept, and how she's supposed to die. And he intercepts her relationship with God. Yes, he does. He says, no. It's even in the Bible. He says, woman will be submissive to the man who's the head of the house, just like Jesus is the head of the church. Right? Well, somewhere along the lines, the interpretation got lost in translation, because men are not acting the same way Jesus did as far as being head of the church. No, they're not. Because Jesus is a peaceful man. And man loves to beat on his wife. He loves to beat his kids. He indulges in his anger. That's why he has the Roman games, like all of these professional sports, fighting, football, competition. Heck, they're even the ones that created the beauty pageants just so women can have a way of being in the competition, except in the worst way. Right? So, yeah. And they never supported their wife. And they'll swear up and down, I was not taught, right? But they've always ignored their mother. They always tried to manipulate their mother. They always wanted their mother to be a female of leniency and tolerance that would intervene on their behalf when the father would try to enforce strict discipline. Right? And sometimes the woman would. Sometimes the woman would like, look, you're not disciplining the child. You're abusing them. You're not even punishing them. You're abusing them. Right? Because the men would get so mad. Right? So, in that regard, the men would start turning against their wives. How dare you? How dare you? I run this house. Right? And she's like, I'm just trying to save the house from falling apart. You can get our kids taken away from us if you beat them like you getting ready to beat them with that, extension cord, or keep punching him, right? So him is like, well, I just can't deal with this, and often the times, I have to work, I have to make money, I have to provide, right? And they're like, I just can't do this with all this emotion and stuff going on that got me going beyond my emotional comfort, and I become an enraged maniac because I need complete control and smooth operation in my home, and I can't do it, and I'm impartial to thinking that my children and my wife is all supposed to be 100% obedient. So then let's get back to what we started out with. If the man is expecting 100% obedience and loyalty, is he 100% loyal and obedient to Jesus or his God? No. No. He's always a work in progress. He has to do his drugs. He has to have bars. He has to have strip clubs. He already knows all the porn sites and the hostros. Yes, he created those things, right? And in the process of creating those things, right, he also created a codependency of the victims that get put into those systems. And many of them, he is glad that they're there. Yes, you're like, well, he's glad they're there? Yes, because they serve a purpose for him, an escape for him, right? But he wants to have this system that nobody's supposed to know about, nobody's supposed to talk about, while he also creates all of these businesses of bars and where you can buy alcohol within a half a bottle of any household right now. Texas was one of the last places that used to have, what did they call it? Controlled alcohol, right? Then they lifted that up about, I would say maybe 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And then they started selling beer and alcohol in every neighborhood grocery store, right? And when that happened, instead of men, buying that 6-pack and drinking that, over the weekend, right? Well, Friday and Saturday, then Sunday they'd run out of alcohol and you really couldn't buy alcohol on Sunday because you had to go to the liquor store and the liquor store was closed on Sundays, right? So now they're able to go to the grocery store and buy a beer and have beer Sunday morning. And then they started incorporating that into the restaurants, right? Now you can have alcohol with your brunches. They don't even see all of this is what they're doing, as if it's not doing it, right? They're like, oh, this is okay, so what if you put wine in your orange juice? And you're like, well, you drinking at breakfast? Well, why not? It's to set the day off, right? And this is their special treat to whoever they seduced the night before, right? So now they're getting her hooked on alcohol and alcohol addictions, right? And this is the way that they want to do it. And then they'll go and pray to God and pray for forgiveness. And as soon as they finish their prayer, they'll have their dinner, right? And then turn around and start having a beer and start thinking about all of the fucking shit that they could do later, right? And it's like, well, why did you even pray and ask for forgiveness if you're going to turn around and just do it all over again, right? Why do you say, oh, I'm going to love her, and then in that next breath, I blame her, I blame him, right? What is this about? Well, it's about no accountability, right? Many Christians have taken the fact that they think they can just be calling on Jesus to forgive them of their sins, but they forget that repent. Repent means to change that particular petition. Otherwise, it's null and void. Right? You were just playing a game with yourself. You're not going to play your game to an ascended master. You're not going to play a game to a spiritual being. You're not going to play a game with the higher source. You're just not. But if you think you can, you could leave a note in the comments, because I want to watch you do it. Okay? Thank you.